On November 19, 2025, a protest erupted outside the Milipol International Security Exhibition held in Villepinte, France, located in the suburb of Seine-Saint-Denis, just outside Paris. Approximately 50 demonstrators gathered to express their opposition to the presence of Israeli exhibitors at the exhibition. The protest centered on the display of Israeli security technology, a controversial presence given the ongoing geopolitical tensions involving Israel and its neighbors, particularly in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The protest unfolded as demonstrators gathered near the exhibition center, holding placards and chanting slogans, including Milipol assassins, Macron complicit, boycott Israel, and Emirates assassins. The protesters' sentiments were directed primarily at the Israeli exhibitors who were participating in the Milipol exhibition. Milipol, an international event that showcases cutting-edge technologies related to internal security, law enforcement and defense, is held every 2 years. The exhibition features a wide array of security-related products, including surveillance systems, armoured vehicles, weapons and other technologies that are used by national governments and international agencies for policing, military operations and border control. For the protesters, the presence of Israeli companies at the exhibition was seen as an affront. They were particularly vocal against what they viewed as complicity in war and human rights violations, accusing the Israeli exhibitors of profiting from technologies linked to repression and violence, particularly amid the ongoing conflict with Palestine. The protesters also condemned the participation of exhibitors from the United Arab Emirates, citing the UAE's role in the Middle East conflicts, including its involvement in the war in Yemen. The demonstration was organised by the War on War movement, along with the Stop Arming Israel France collective, two groups that have long campaigned against the export of military equipment to Israel and other countries involved in conflicts that have been criticised by human rights organisations. Among the key figures at the protest was Loïc Fournil, a prominent spokesperson for both groups, who condemned the exhibition and the companies involved in it. At around 12 p.m. local time, the protest began in earnest as demonstrators gathered in front of the Milipol venue. They waved Palestinian flags, held banners and shouted slogans denouncing Israel's role in the conflict in Gaza and the broader Middle East. Many protesters specifically targeted French President Emmanuel Macron's policies, accusing him of tacitly endorsing Israeli actions by allowing the Israeli exhibitors to participate in the French-hosted event. The demonstrators' message was clear. They wanted to draw attention to what they described as the complicity of both Israel and France in the ongoing suffering of Palestinian people. As the protest gained momentum, tensions began to rise. The demonstrators, who were determined to make their voices heard, faced off against law enforcement officers deployed to manage the situation. French police were stationed in the vicinity of the protest, and as the crowd swelled, they issued repeated orders for the protesters to disperse, warning them that their gathering was unauthorized and that they would face consequences if they did not leave the area. At one point, officers could be heard shouting, "Calm down," as they attempted to manage the increasingly tense scene. The protesters, undeterred by the police presence, continued to chant and hold their ground. At 00:23, a police officer announced over a loudspeaker that the gathering was illegal, ordering the demonstrators to leave the exhibition centre or face forceful removal. The order was repeated several times, with police warning the crowd that if they did not leave voluntarily, they would be escorted off the premises. In response, the protesters stood firm, holding their placards and continuing their chants of defiance. Some of the protesters, however, began to leave after the police threats escalated. As the police moved in to remove the protesters, the situation grew increasingly chaotic. Officers could be seen pushing protesters towards the exit of the venue, shouting orders and maintaining a tight perimeter around the group. In some instances, protesters were physically escorted away from the exhibition centre and directed towards the nearby RER station, the public transportation hub that connects Villepinte to the rest of Paris. The police maintained control of the situation, and the protesters, many of whom were still holding Palestinian flags and anti-Israel banners, were removed from the premises without any significant physical altercations. Among the protesters, one figure stood out, Loïc Fournil, a spokesperson for the War on War movement and the Stop Arming Israel France collective. Fournil, a 30-year-old French activist, addressed the situation publicly as the protest unfolded. In a passionate speech, Fournil explained the protest's central message, condemning the Milipol exhibition as a forum for the sale of instruments of torture and repression. He linked the presence of Israeli exhibitors to the ongoing genocide in Gaza, as well as the violence in Sudan, calling out what he described as the international community's failure to act on these crises. Fournil's words were blunt and direct as he addressed the role of international arms trade in fueling these conflicts. So here we are at Milipol, the global exhibition for police repression and war against the people. It is an exhibition that sells instruments of torture and repression against the population right in the heart of Paris, amidst the genocide of the Palestinian people, amidst the genocide in Sudan. There are indeed Israeli exhibitors from the Emirates. It is scandalous that such exhibitions take place in France today, Fournil said, his voice amplified by a megaphone. Fournil's comments echoed the sentiments of many protesters who viewed the presence of Israeli exhibitors at Milipol as a direct endorsement of military practices that they deemed unacceptable. For these protesters, the exhibition was not just an event showcasing new technologies, but a symbol of what they saw as the global arms trade's complicity in human rights abuses. They argued that such events provided a platform for countries involved in controversial conflicts to display their military products, thereby profiting from the suffering of civilians caught in these wars. While the protest was largely peaceful, the intervention by law enforcement marked a clear end to the demonstration. The police made it clear that the protesters had no legal right to continue their actions in the manner they were. As the demonstrators were escorted off the exhibition grounds and towards the RER station, the immediate threat of escalation appeared to subside, though tensions remained high. In the aftermath of the protest, both the War on War movement and the Stop Arming Israel France collective issued statements reaffirming their opposition to the arms trade and the presence of Israeli companies at international defense exhibitions like Milipol. The groups argued that France, as the host of the event, was complicit in allowing military technologies linked to human rights abuses to be showcased on its soil. Despite the disruption caused by the protest, the Milipol exhibition continued without significant interruption. Exhibitors from Israel, the UAE, and other countries remained present, and the event went ahead as planned. However, the protest served as a stark reminder of the growing opposition to the arms trade and the global reach of military exhibitions, particularly those featuring companies from countries involved in ongoing conflicts. The incident at Milipol comes amid heightened global awareness of the intersection between arms sales and human rights violations, particularly in the context of the ongoing conflict in Gaza and Sudan. It highlights the challenges that countries face when balancing international trade and defense partnerships with their moral obligations to address human rights abuses and support global peace efforts. As the protest in Villepinte came to a close, the situation remained tense but under control. The protesters were removed from the venue and the Milipol exhibition proceeded. Law enforcement did not report any further significant incidents after the removal of the demonstrators. The protesters, while removed from the venue, succeeded in raising their concerns about the global arms trade and the role of international security exhibitions in perpetuating conflicts. In summary, the protest against Israeli exhibitors at the Milipol International Security Exhibition in Villepinte was marked by vocal opposition to the event's focus on security technologies linked to controversial international conflicts. Despite being forcibly removed by law enforcement, the protesters succeeded in highlighting their objections to the presence of Israeli companies at the exhibition and their broader criticisms of the global arms trade. The Milipol event continued without major disruption, but the protest underscored the growing global debate about the ethics of international defense exhibitions and the trade in military technologies.
Rassemblement n'est pas déclaré dans ces termes et en ces lieux. Merci de rejoindre la gare RER, sans quoi nous serons contraints de faire usage de la force.
Police nationale, police
So here we are at Milipol, the global exhibition for police repression and war against the people. It is an exhibition that sells instruments of torture and repression against the population right in the heart of Paris, amidst the genocide of the Palestinian people, amidst the genocide in Sudan. There are indeed Israeli exhibitors from the Emirates. It is scandalous that such exhibitions take place in France today.